That was a great first session. Guys, I am Pete Paschal. I'm the Chief of Staff for CoinDesk for content, and I am your host today. We are going rapid fire this morning, so we're going right into the second session. All right, so there are three little letters in the crypto world that have gotten a lot of attention over the past year. And those letters are OMG. Oh, wait, wait, they're NFTs. Sorry. OMG, that was only the last month or so. We don't talk about that so much. But NFTs, yes, they've gone from a blockchain curiosity to a huge industry in their own right. And we have a whole panel to talk to you about them and walk you through the basics and what you need to know about this extremely interesting space. I can't think of anyone better to give you a tour than CoinDesk contributor Megan DeMatteo, and she's going to be talking with John Crain, the CEO of SuperRare Labs, Samantha James, a Web3 agent and producer for Superdigital, and Sasha Stiles, a poet, artist, AI researcher, and co-founder of theVERSEverse. Not a typo. Please give them a warm welcome.
Hello. Oh, good. The microphone is working. It's nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for coming first thing in the morning on Thursday. We're so happy to have you all. And thank you, Pete, for the introduction. It's a privilege to be here. Before we kick off, just a show of hands so that I have an understanding and that the panelists here have an understanding. Obviously, you all have heard of NFTs, but how many people here have either dabbled in creating one or are interested in creating one? Raise your hand. Okay, lovely. Interestingly enough, this space is, a lot of people are pseudonymous, so somebody here could be a famous NFT artist and we would have no idea, which is one of the kind of appeals of it. What about selling NFTs? Is anybody here interested in selling NFTs or buying them, collecting them, investing them, selling them? Okay, cool. So it's kind of a mixed bag between creators and investors. Again, one of the reasons why the space is so interesting. So yeah, it was a year ago that I learned about NFTs, and since then we've seen artworks sell for millions, online communities rise and then very quickly get rugged, celebrities change their profile pictures to cartoon animals, and even the first insider trading charge with NFTs. So as Pete said, you know, it's hard to ignore the topic. My panelists here today have known about NFTs for longer than I have, and I suspect are somewhat more immune to kind of the hype and the hysteria and the mayhem surrounding NFTs, and they're really here because they're interested in contributing lasting value to the communities. So they're very respected in their respective communities, very ready to talk about the value that NFTs bring. So I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves. We'll start with Sasha.
Oh,
hi, welcome.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is Sasha Stiles. As was already said, I'm a poet, I'm an artist, I'm also an artificial intelligence researcher. I do a lot of work that integrates text with technology in different ways. I actually come from a very traditional literary background, but have always really enjoyed thinking about speculative technologies and have been doing work with artificial intelligence for some years now, and all these things have sort of come together in my crypto practice over the past few years. I'm also the co-founder of theVERSEverse, which is a gallery that is dedicated solely to poetry NFTs, and we really are working to empower writers in particular, both creatively and financially through blockchain protocol. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Sasha. Samantha.
I'm Samantha. I'm a Web3 agent and producer. And basically what that means is I help do storytelling on the blockchain. So I help people develop and sell collections that are specifically for NFTs. I've worked with Neil Stevenson, who's the author of Snow Crash. I worked with Singapore Vogue on their first series of NFTs, which is actually a series of magazine covers that were digitally native. And I just help creators basically kind of find their way in the blockchain space.
Thank you, Samantha. Iconic, right? And John, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone. Well, first of all, Megan, thanks for having me up here. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. My name is John Crain. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of SuperRare Labs. We built SuperRare and launched it way back in 2018 when everyone thought art and crypto was a horrible idea to mix together. And yeah, have been just always interested in art, super excited about how, the growth of the space. And yeah, happy to be here to discuss buying and trading NFTs.
Awesome. And just for those who aren't familiar, SuperRare Labs is one of the leading NFT marketplaces built on Ethereum, correct?
Correct.
Yes. How many people here have heard of Ethereum? I'm assuming most of y'all. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so let's just kick off. What I'm learning as I report on crypto and NFTs is that you can't ever get too fundamental. So let's just start with a fundamental kind of definition. So Sasha, will you give us your definition in your own words of an NFT? If you were describing it to somebody who got off of a spaceship and had no idea what it was.
Yes, okay. So again, I come from a very traditional literature and language background. I'm not a technical person necessarily. I've learned a lot, but I think for myself, the best way that I found to think about an NFT is that it's basically a certificate of authenticity for a digital object or artifact. So I kind of describe it by putting it into context of the work that I've been doing. So I've been creating like digital poems, interactive, like multimedia poems for many years. And before I really started to learn about NFTs, I didn't really know what to do with them because there was really no place to publish them. In the traditional literary magazine world, there's really no home for those kinds of things. Yeah. So I would put them on, Instagram, or I would post them on Twitter or whatever. But posting something is very sort of fleeting and ephemeral, and you don't really have control over it that way. So once I started learning about crypto and blockchain, I started to realize that I could actually take some of these multimedia poems and essentially self-publish them on the blockchain and use the NFT as the certificate to kind of show that this is my poem, to show the provenance behind it, when it was created, when it was minted, and then of course, once I started selling them as well, who the owners were and information about things like, if there was any licensing or copyright information associated with it. So it's basically a way of taking a digital object and attaching lots of really important data to it so that it gives it context and provenance and authenticity.
I love that. Yeah, because in traditional literary world, we have the Library of Congress that kind of keeps track of all of that stuff for us. But now there's blockchain, so it happens electronically, much quicker, and without an intermediary. And you bring up such a good point because in the days, we think of Instagram poets, right? Like the Rupi Kaurs of the world, who essentially create content for free, create poems from a place of their heart, and then if you're lucky, it kind of goes viral, and then you get invited on to, late night talk shows, but that's one in maybe 1,000 poets, or one in a million, maybe even artists and creators, and that's just one model, but it doesn't necessarily serve all of the creators because not everybody's going to go viral, nor does everybody have an interest in creating content, putting it up somewhere for free, and then hoping to maybe get a book deal out of it. I think you're talking about something so important, which is just having much more autonomy over how your work is used, who's purchasing it, and where those royalties are going. Samantha, what would be your definition of an NFT in your own words?
Well, I kind of like Sasha's definition of a certificate, but also piggybacking off of what you said is I think NFTs also evolved and emerged from kind of the area that Instagram was not providing. I started off with Chad Knight, who's a digital artist and has 250,000 fans, and we would get all these people talking to us constantly of where can I buy your art, where can I interact with your art, and you used to just be called an Instagram artist, not a digital artist. There was no separate category for what NFTs became, and we would talk to art galleries all the time, and they said, well, we really like your work, we understand there's demand, but it doesn't really fit what our collectors want. And so I think NFTs emerged as just this digital world that needed its own space to thrive and create a marketplace for it.
I love that, yeah. Right, because you're talking about curation, and not only you're putting ownership back into the hands of the artist, but you're also putting curation into the hands of the community members and the people who are engaging and collecting the art. John.
Yeah, so I mean, I also love the certificate of authenticity metaphor, especially with art, right? That's really often what you're buying. That's why you pay $100 million for Warhol. You have a piece of paper that says it's worth $100 million. But I also think what I got so excited about with NFTs very early on is, in crypto, people love to talk about digital identity, and we've been working on it for many years, and it's super complicated, and we're still working on it, and there's not a whole lot of progress, in my opinion. And when I saw NFTs, I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is digital identity for a cat. Every single, and it's very simple, it's standards based, and so I also think like you want a digital identity layer for a certificate of authenticities, but it's really a very simple, easy to use identity layer for any type of content or really anything.
Yeah, that's a great point too. There's so many applications of NFTs that people can conceptualize and think about, but then there's so many others that you wouldn't even necessarily consider, such as identity. Like, how does an NFT validate or verify identity? And we'll hopefully get into that. But I do want to focus a little bit more on the how. So let's kind of dive into the how side of things, because I know that there are people in the audience who are interested in making their own NFTs. Sasha, one of the missions of theVERSEverse, which is the NFT, the literary NFT gallery that Sasha co-founded, is to onboard new writers to the Web3 space. So how does somebody go about making their first NFT? What's the first step?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So yes, as you said, at theVERSEverse, we're really interested in helping to onboard writers into Web3. And very often, speaking from experience, again, I come from a very literary background. A lot of the writers that I know don't have any experience in crypto whatsoever. They don't have a crypto wallet. They don't know what a crypto wallet is. I didn't either up until a few years ago, so I really understand that. And so we really have tried as best we can to figure out how to make this onboarding process really effortless and to try and do some hand-holding and to try and lower the intimidation factor a bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the first thing is that I normally, again, speak from personal experience and kind of go through step by step, go find a way to make a MetaMask wallet, which isn't very hard. It's kind of like signing up,
Yeah.
in a number, the way that you sign up for anything else. Go find a, Kukai or a Temple wallet. I think the first thing to think about there, which was a consideration for me, is which blockchain you want to mint on, because you need to start with a wallet that's associated with that blockchain. So I mint mostly on a blockchain called Tezos, which is proof of stake, and that's kind of where I started my journey, and I really found a family and a community on the Tezos blockchain in that ecosystem. So that's mainly where I do my work, but I'm also heavily involved with Ethereum. I'm actually involved with SuperRare as well, and I think those two blockchains to me have felt very much like home in different ways. So I think maybe step one, the logistical step one, is to set up your wallet and choose the blockchain or blockchains that's associated with, but related is to kind of spend some time in those communities, maybe on Twitter, talk to people that are involved in those ecosystems, and really get a sense of what's going on there, what kinds of things are happening, what sorts of movements are happening in the areas that you're interested in pursuing. Because more than anything else, if you want to have fun and be successful and thrive in that ecosystem, you need to like the people who are there, and you need to want to be part of it, and you want to be actively involved in it. So I think spending some time doing research at the outset is a really good place to start. I highly recommend that. And then, corollary to that, once you've set up your wallets, I think it's going a step further on the blockchain that you've chosen to figure out which platforms you want to be involved with. And there's so many platforms, and again, they all have a different personality. They all have, different community. Some of them are focused on a particular kind of art. Some are focused on, certain kinds of promotion strategies or methods for how to drop a collection. So I think there too, it's just spending some time engaging with those communities and artists that are involved in those communities on Twitter, on Discord, wherever you feel comfortable, and just really getting a sense of what makes sense. That's a little redundant, but what makes sense to you as a creator of an NFT, just kind of putting the pieces together. Don't just go blindly into it and pick a platform because you've heard people talk about it. Spend some time really getting to know the platform and making sure that it's right for you, I would say.
I love that. And I will say, so I wrote a how to mint your first NFT guide for CoinDesk. And I did it as an experiment and kind of as a guinea pig for readers. And I just picked OpenSea because it was, OpenSea is the most popular and most commonly used platform. And I would say maybe beginner friendly, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit, and I was on deadline, so so I was like, let me do this thing, and I'll put it on OpenSea, and hopefully it'll give a broad kind of high-level guide for people. But when you're talking about being more selective than that and more discerning, like, can you talk a little bit about how you chose Tezos? Like, what were you looking for in a blockchain?
Yeah.
What does a blockchain bring to your, like, what are you looking for in a relationship? What are you looking for in a blockchain?
Right. And also just to plug for that article, because it's a really good step-by-step guide to how to actually mint an NFT. So that was really invaluable. We actually share that with a lot of new poets and writers.
Good. Yeah.
So I think for me, the reason I gravitated toward Tezos is because, when I started, and this was the beginning of 2021 when I really got involved in it, so not that long ago, relatively speaking, but ages ago by other measures. It was really just a very experimental playground, and there were a lot of artists who were there who were doing very kind of underground work and who were really just doing off-the-wall things and kind of collaborating with other artists and doing really just sort of wild projects together.
And you're talking to these people on like Twitter Spaces?
Yes.
Discord groups at this point?
No, not yet. This
Okay.
was kind of before Discord. We were still kind of using Clubhouse, I think.
Clubhouse. Who remembers Clubhouse? I feel like as soon as I learned about Clubhouse, it went away, and then I was like, I feel like I was late to the party a little bit.
I know. Too bad. It was fun.
Okay,
But
so you were
mostly
talking to
Twitter.
people, Twitter, Clubhouse, and you were just excited by the experimentation that artists were playing with.
Yeah, and actually the way that I found the first platform that I minted on, which is called Higetnunk, which no longer exists, but it's sort of this like iconic kind of early Tezos art platform, is because they were doing community-based projects on Twitter, and they had these really fun hashtags where they would sort of put out a hashtag and invite people to contribute and participate and use the hashtag in order to kind of let people know they wanted to be part of this ecosystem. And I think the first event that I was part of was called Object for Object, where artists were just swapping art basically for free. And it was the most amazing way just to get to know people in the community and to build up a portfolio. I'd never collected art before, like I'd never collected in a serious way. And because of those early days on Higetnunk, I have hundreds and hundreds of really amazing pieces that we all just kind of shared with each other.
Wow.
So it was that kind of vibe. It was just the generosity of spirit and like the collaborative ethos and the experimental vibe. These, that particular blockchain is still like very new and up and coming, but there is a feeling there that we are truly building something new together that wouldn't exist anywhere else. So that's what drew me to it.
And this is a great segue into Samantha's expertise, because I know you mentioned that stealth social media marketing is one of your areas of expertise and one of the things that you help your artists with. So can you talk about how marketing looks different in a Web3 world? As somebody who I write poetry, and marketing has always really intimidated me because I'm an artist, I'm not a marketer. But I think what's cool about the NFT world is that artists are finding these new ways to quote unquote market, but it's in ways that are innovative and fun and collaborative and a little stealthy. So can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so Web3 marketing is wildly different because I'm also from a traditional marketing background, and it's a lot more like innovative and guerrilla marketing and just kind of playful, which artists like, and I think it fits their personality more. But I mean, publishing an article on Forbes about Mechaverse did help them sell out, but did it really do anything for our community? Not so much. Traditional media kind of falls flat, so being really creative with how you reward and keep telling that story through marketing is very compelling for people. So, I mean, Like Coin Artist is one example of this. So she did this crypto puzzle where she like embedded a seed phrase in a painting, and it led to like another puzzle and another puzzle. It took people 3 years to actually like crack the puzzle, which I don't think was her intention, but by the time they figured it out, like the Bitcoin was worth $50,000. So it was,
how gratifying.
yeah, and she was like, well, I didn't have any money to do marketing, so I just did this puzzle kind of as like community engagement to be fun for people, and that's what ended up sticking with people the most. And I just really love that. Like, you don't have to think of it as marketing, it's just a story you want to tell and something that you would like to discover. Or just like a connection with your favorite artist or author.
I love that. Now forgive me, the clicker wasn't working or I hadn't figured out how to use it yet in the beginning, but now it is. So we have some examples here of these PFPs or profile pictures, and this ties into marketing as well. I think from an outside point of view, you know, my first impression of these was like, I didn't quite understand exactly why they took off so well, but they really do tie in that kind of guerrilla marketing aspect. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? Samantha, like this PFPs is just one subsection of all the different types of NFT art. Why are they so popular? Why do people love them? And what value do they bring to people's lives?
Well, Goblin Town is the example I'm going to go for, just because they're probably the most like WTF, like where did this come from project.
Raise your hand if you've heard of Goblin Town. Okay, I encourage everybody here to go down the Goblin Town rabbit hole. It's really fun.
So they emerged as a free mint, which is an interesting way to launch a project because it's a lot just about community and like the fun of collecting it. But you know, they still make money based off of creator royalties, so you can set those between like 2 and 10% or whatever you want. So project founders still make money, but essentially like people got so wrapped up in trying to figure out like who were the creators, like what roadmap are they actually building on, like what's happening here, that the joy of collecting was the whole promise of the collection. Like there's no illustrious roadmap, there's no promises of, you know, like launching a party at NFT NYC. So
which is common for profile pictures, right? Like
exactly,
Bored Apes
yeah.
is the perfect example, the classic, kind of most iconic example they have.
Yeah, and like Moonbirds is amazing. We all know that's Kevin Rose's PFP, and he's having Tame Impala perform at his NFT NYC party. But I mean, there's just different levels of like community built into each PFP. I'd say World of Women is, you know, now blue chip art, which people really respect. Like Doodles has a really playful, community-oriented vibe. So if you're going to launch one of these things, just basically think of your core audience and what kind of values and experiences they would like to, you know, have if they bought one of these.
Is it true that Goblin Town did like hours-long Twitter spaces where they spoke in Goblin language the whole time?
I heard that, but like I'm so busy, I don't know that I tuned in.
But like, how fun is that, you know? And it's just a perfect example of like being playful and seeing who comes and who gets engaged. And then if it's successful, you know, theoretically you can create a whole language. And like the puzzle example, people can spend time decrypting it and like, you know, unlocking this new language. And I don't know, this is the kind of stuff that creates like fan fiction in the traditional publishing world, you know, like really highly engaged audience members who, you know, that's why we have like Harry Potter world and like these, you know, these IP franchises that kind of go, they have, the possibilities are endless. I think the same thing exists in the Web3 space. It's just happening in a very different level.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you say that it's like more grassroots? Like how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's a lot more grassroots, and I feel like, I don't know if I use the word like punk, but it's very DIY to the point where, you know, like you're gonna have 3 people in a room with a bunch of White Claws and some laptops staying up till 4 in the morning, and they're gonna create a project that can impact like thousands of people and move the market in a way that like a major game studio would take 7 years to make, and maybe kind of just like, it would be a blip on the radar. So that's what I love about the NFT space, is people are so passionate about storytelling in this totally unique, bizarre way.
I love that. So let's go on to buying NFTs. John, what is the first step? And if you see an NFT and you say, that's mine, I want to buy it. I have one in mind. what's the first step in buying it?
Well, the first thing would be to make sure you have a wallet. So I think that's, kind of like
I'm so glad you said that.
buying
because
101.
Here we go. There are so many wallets
There are
to
many
choose
wallets,
from.
yeah.
Like hundreds, right?
Maybe even thousands at this point.
So how does somebody choose a wallet?
Yeah, well, I think, obviously MetaMask is, very well trusted. I would definitely go with something that other people use, right? Unless you're going to like audit the cryptography yourself. I would not go with an esoteric new wallet before other people are the guinea pigs and try it out. So yeah, I make MetaMask is kind of like the standard Chrome browser. They also have a decent mobile wallet. Rainbow Wallet is also one of my personal favorites.
Oh, why is that?
It's super, like they have done a really good job. It has like a pretty beautiful UI. So if you're like a product UI nerd, I would definitely recommend checking out Rainbow Wallet. It's kind of like setting up this wallet is step number one, and then procuring some crypto. Probably, Coinbase is one of the easier places, but basically just like setting up the wallet, buying some crypto, transferring it to your wallet is kind of like the beginning of the stage.
Okay.
And then
Now
once you have that done, then you can go on a buying spree.
So one kind of like nitpicky question about that. I actually did just buy my first NFT a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Thank you. I'll accept that. Thank you. And yeah, the gas fees kind of tripped me up a little bit because I was like, the mint wasn't, it was 0.1 ETH, so I was like, that at the time was around $200. But then I was like, how much do I put in for gas? Do I put in double and try to be safe? Like, how do I do that? So can you talk a little bit about kind of the mental math when it comes to converting all of the different currencies?
Yeah, the gas fees are certainly tricky, and especially if it's like a really popular project that's like, driving up the gas price, you can...
Oh, so yeah, talk about that. Like if there's
Yeah.
like a big drop of something.
It can be super annoying and confusing. Like the more people are trying to use the network, like really gas is kind of this spam prevention mechanism. So it's like it costs money to use Ethereum, so people don't just spam it with nonsense transactions. And yeah, if there's something, if like people are, and the way it works is like if you put a higher gas price, miners are going to be more likely to accept it because the gas goes to the miners. So it's like you can kind of get in these bidding wars for who wants their transactions processed first.
Is there any way to influence that? Like if I really want to buy my NFT, can I like
You
bump
can,
up the gas a little bit to try to
you
get first
can.
in line?
Yep.
How?
So it's kind of like, it's often in like the advanced settings of the
Okay.
wallet, but you can like go say like super high gas price. But yeah, it can be annoying if like you try to buy something and then other people are like bumping up their gas. You might end in like transaction purgatory where you're just waiting for your transaction to clear, which can certainly be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was
Go
gonna say,
ahead.
I should have said it before too, but this is a good point also for creating and minting your NFTs. There's a gas fee involved with minting things as well as buying them, and that's something that for me was a consideration in the beginning too. One reason why I started on Tezos is because proof of stake blockchains are really, really cheap to mint on. They're very efficient. So I could mint an experimental project there for like cents, if that, versus some of the early pieces that I minted on Ethereum, I would pay $60, $70, $80 to mint. So I think there's also that should factor into your consideration as well, is the size and scope of your project, what you want to budget in terms of initial minting and all of that, and just build that in.
Thank you. That's such a good point. Such a good point. Yeah, because there's gas whenever you mint, if you're on Ethereum, and there's gas whenever you buy. And it's not always the same across chains, or at the time too. The time makes a difference. Okay, so we're getting down to the last couple of minutes, but one question I did want to ask about buying, so SuperRare just opened a pop-up gallery in Soho, New York. It'll be there through August, correct?
Yep, through the end of
this year.
August.
So can you talk about buying an NFT in real life compared to online, and what the experience is like?
Yeah, I'd say, it's probably just more fun in real life than it is, or I don't know, depends who you are.
But it's a gallery, there's digital screens with the NFTs displayed on them, on the walls, just like a normal gallery.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, we have a bunch of screen installations, different programming that we're like kind of putting up for different exhibitions. And yeah, I mean, the nice thing is if you have it set up in your phone, you can purchase it just the same as you would if you're sitting at your desktop.
So spectators need a MetaMask wallet app on their phone to come
Yeah.
in. They scan the QR code, and then
Yeah.
they can handle the transaction right there.
Exactly, yeah. So you can buy it in the store, it'll show up in your wallet, and or any wallet that you have synced. So yeah, I think really the fun part about having the IRL space is like we can have artists come in, we can put on events. Sasha was actually moderating a panel earlier. She was on it. She was on it. Yeah, for like a super cool AI artist that we have on SuperRare called Botto. And so I think that's like, for us, it's like a big part of the story is like, look, it's not just crypto bros trading apes with each other, which like is fun to do, right? Like I'm not saying that's not fun, but like this technology is like truly revolutionary for creatives of all types. And I think that's like having the space where people can come in, engage with other collectors, talk to artists, like hear their stories really helps people understand, I think, the depth of everything that's happening.
Yeah, I think that that's such an important point because I know that I felt a little bit of like fear because it's like I love people, I love being around people, and in this new digital world that we're moving into, how can we actually use it to humanize the art experience even more as opposed to just putting us more deeper into our silos. Okay, last 50 seconds. Let's do a little lightning round. Where are NFTs 1 year from now or 5 years from now, Sasha?
Maybe I'm a little bit biased about this, but I think that right now there's enormous potential for writers on the blockchain, and that potential is so untapped as of yet. Thinking back to like what John was doing in 2018, like thinking about what writers in my community are trying to do now in 2022. I hope in the next couple years, we're able to really build on where we are now. I think NFTs are almost like, a new Gutenberg kind of technology, and it's just unlocking incredible new realms of creativity for writers. And just really quickly, I wanted to also say, like one of the things I've been experimenting with is actually taking my new book, which I co-wrote with an AI, and it's called Technology, and I've been experimenting with using NFTs to turn this into a multimedia, like a media-rich version of this book in different ways, and so many other writers are doing similar things. So I think you can hope to see a lot of really amazing media-rich texts coming to you in the next year or two.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, 1 year from now, where are NFTs, Samantha? And then we do have
Well,
to
a
wrap
little
up.
alpha I can share is I think NFTs are definitely headed to Hollywood and movies
yes.
and creating ownership of IP for storytellers in a way we haven't seen before.
Thank you. John?
Let's see, 1 year from now, I mean, music and digital fashion is something that I think is going to be exploding over the next couple of years. So we'll be full on into the music fashion bull market.
So there you have it. We don't have time for a Q&A, but if you have any questions, the panelists are willing to step outside, so feel free to ask them questions. And if you want to go deeper into this, there will be 2 follow-up kind of mini workshops tomorrow that I'll be leading. So make sure to look for those in your program. Thank you all so much. Let's hear it for the panelists.